podcast that raises your frequency. I'm Mory Fontanez, intuition coach.
And I'm Melissa Grushka, and I'm here to slaughter your sense of safety with some scary stories.
Oh, ominous. This week, we are continuing our spooky season, talking about unsolved mysteries. Bean, are you ready?
Always.
What up, Bean?
What's up, Bean? Should we
Happy
give some
week
visuals?
3 of...
Thanks.
Oh.
Should we give some quick visuals? I feel like I'm going to...
can't wait. You can't wait to tell people what costume you've shown up in.
I like to be prepared and on time and ready to roll in costume.
Okay, let's give 3
clues,
clues, and see if
good one.
And then we'll give our audience a minute to see if they can guess. Okay, she is yellow.
A minute. Yellow.
Oh yeah, a minute. She has goggles on her face, and she likes bananas.
I wear overalls.
Oh,
denim.
That's
denim
a 4th
overalls.
clue.
Ugh. So
All right.
spooky, we can't even count.
I don't know if you guessed it, but Bean showed up this week dressed as a minion.
A spooky minion.
What's a spooky minion?
I don't know. A minion who's going to tell you a scary story.
Okay, I'm ready for it. It actually makes me feel better to have you in this really precious costume telling me a scary story.
It might. It won't haunt your nightmares quite like the other times.
Correct. How has your week been so far? You got anything cringy, delightful?
Cringy
in the middle?
is second kid home, sick. Last week it was one kid. This week it's another kid. And I suspect next week it'll be the 3rd kid. That's how it likes to work in my house. We get like my kids like to do it really slowly. Nobody ever overlaps. If they do, it's only for like a day. So that we really prolong the length of the illness and the time we are stuck in the home.
Yes. My daughter is sick now for the 3rd week.
Yep.
Which is super stressful. My son got it in the middle and then he got better and she's still sick. So it's like just sick season. It is.
Which is
spooky
really kind of sad.
Yeah. I know.
Winter has barely arrived and we're already feeling it.
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to you.
Thank you.
I'm adjusting my goggles.
I see that.
It's hard to wear goggles and headphones at the same time.
But yet you're doing it. You're like a DJ minion.
Wicca wicca. Witches.
I'm just waiting for you to ask me about my cringy moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there something cringy or delightful you'd care to share?
Let's see. This week, cringy or delightful? Oh, I know. Last week we were recording our episode on exorcism or rituals, and I did exorcisms and I scared the crap out of all of us.
Correct.
And as we're recording this, there's like a smell coming in through the door of my office, and I'm freaking out about it because I had asked TJ about it and he had Googled that usually. Okay, so the smell was this like pungent garlicky smell, but like not in a delicious way, in a way that is not pleasant, and it
like a
worse.
vampire.
It kept getting worse every single day. And so I was like, something is wrong. And it's right outside my office. My office is outside of the house, like up a little hill. And I told TJ about it. He was on a business trip, but he's like Googling on the phone. He's like, it says here that the thing that can smell like that is like a body that's a carcass that is deteriorating. So I was like, great. There is like some dead possum or something outside in the garden or something. So as we're recording this exorcism episode, I'm getting more and more freaked out of the smell. In addition to the topic, I like work myself into a tizzy to the point where both clients that I have after, the first thing I tell them is what's going on outside of my yard and that there's a carcass and that my morning has been so terrible. All this to say, TJ comes home from his trip the next morning, like fully ready in gloves, has shovel, like ready to roll.
Wow.
Literally looks everywhere. Cannot find a single thing. Calls me outside and is like, come here. Okay. So I go over and there's this big flowering yellow plant outside of my office that has really pretty yellow flowers. And he's like, come here. I'm like, okay. He's like, smell this flower. Smell the flower. It smells like garlic.
What is it? I mean, that potent? Last week you were literally physically covering your nose.
Right. And now it doesn't smell anymore. So I don't know if it was like
What?
pollinating or it was going through some weird process, biological process, but it's this plant that's gave off this garlic scent for like 8 days and now it's gone.
Wow.
And
it was like hitting puberty. It hit puberty and it had rank body odor, rank flower odor.
So I totally overreacted and shared too much of that with too many people, and it ended up being a plant.
That's I thought that there really was going to be something spooky under your deck. I thought with all the spooky talk and how creeped out you were, I was like, something's down there. It's gonna be like a mystery.
Every time, I see what you're trying to do right now. Are you trying to transition into the topic? But every time,
not exactly.
Every time Kaya was running in here last week, I was sure she was going to have like a dead animal in her mouth because it smelled so bad. So every time she'd run in here, I'd scare myself. Every time, I just completely freaked myself out. And maybe it's because I was reading about exorcisms all week long.
I suspect that had something to do with it.
So basically, I'm like a 5-year-old child who's not allowed to watch scary movies.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I'll let you do your transition now.
Oh, so it sounded like you were talking about a mystery about what the smell was, which was a solved mystery once you figured it out. But what we're going to talk about today is unsolved mysteries.
Whoa, you did it. I mean, you barely did it.
It was flawless.
You did it. Unsolved mysteries. All right, so this is spooky topic number 3. Why did we pick unsolved mysteries again? Do you remember?
Because you kept trying to pick aliens and we kept saying aliens are not spooky. Aliens are just aliens. I understand that you might be slightly fearful of them, but they're not spooky. You've been pushing it.
I want to do a poll.
All right.
I disagree. I think that most people would tell you that aliens are spooky.
Like if you go to a haunted hayride and there's a bunch of people dressed up as creepy things, are any of them ever dressed as an alien?
Okay, let's just picture this. You're on the haunted hayride.
I just said
You're going through the forest.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing around you yet. You're just kind of going through the forest. It's dark.
Yeah.
And up ahead, behind 3 or 4 trees, you suddenly just see 2 figures emerge that are humanoid looking, that have big eyes and huge skulls and those long alien limbs. That doesn't scare you?
I mean, I guess anything on a hayride coming, like a bear coming out of the dark, I'd be like, that's scary. But I don't know. When you think spooky and creepy, I just don't go alien. I'm sorry.
Well, listen, I think you should read some of the alien stories that I have been partaking in, and you will be creeped out.
Let's just do a normal alien episode. Fine. Are they real? What does your intuition say? It doesn't have to be spooky.
Okay, fine. We'll do a normal alien episode later on when it's not spooky season.
And yes, please comment if aliens are spooky. I would love to prove being wrong right now.
Once again, that was something for Instagram, not for the podcast, because you can't comment.
Or Instagram or YouTube. Or you know what? If you feel compelled, give us a review on Apple and also comment below it.
Oh, in the review.
If you think aliens are spooky. We'll take it in any, I'll take proving Mory wrong in any format.
It's true. You really would. All right. Well, Unsolved Mysteries is something that has been a big deal because of lots of reasons, but because of our fascination with true crime. And this medium itself, podcasts, has really fed the concept of unsolved mysteries and true crime. But we're not doing true crime today, right? We're a little bit on the more paranormal side of unsolved mysteries. Or is yours crime related?
I don't know. Mine's pretty crime related. That's why it wasn't super spooky. And that's why I use the term slaughter up top.
Yeah. No,
it's not super spooky, but it's unsolved. What was the unsolved? Who was the host of Unsolved Mysteries in the 90s?
This is a great question. So I looked this up in preparation.
Oh, you did? I keep thinking Dan Rather, but I know that's wrong.
No. We're about to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Unsolved Mysteries, by the way. And it was hosted by Robert Stack, whose distinctive voice and trench coat let viewers know they're about to see a true crime production. But do you want to hear a fun fact about Unsolved Mysteries?
Yeah.
Before this actor became an A-lister, he cut his acting chops on a television episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Who was it? Guess.
Oh, like in a reenactment?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. Can you give me a hint?
It's a big one. A-list. Major
A-list? Bruce Willis.
Oh, wow. Nope.
Brad Pitt.
No, Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, I could see that.
He played 26-year-old Larry Dean Dickens, who was slain in a 1978 shooting, and it was featured on season 5 in 1992, which is why I think in the 90s we were so obsessed with Unsolved Mysteries, is because there was literally a show called Unsolved Mysteries. Did you ever watch it?
Obviously, I can like picture the intro, but I'm thinking of somebody else. But yeah, I can picture the intro. It's very 90s. It feels really good in my mind.
Are you thinking about William Shatner?
No, I'm also thinking of some other very depressing story that we don't have to get into.
Let's not. What? William Shatner is hosting an Unsolved Mysteries like show right now on the History Channel. My husband and I watched it last night.
Oh, and?
I love everything on the History Channel. You know, I watch Ancient Aliens constantly.
You do? I didn't know that.
I love that show.
I only know of that show because I once, I'd say over a decade ago, mocked one of my husband's friends severely for watching that show.
Oh, well, now you get to mock me. What's so mock-worthy?
Can you just quickly give a quick debriefing on what's it called? Alien ancestors? Yeah. Give me a quick debriefing on what that is so everyone can understand how silly it is. But wait, can I also just say William Shatner doesn't quit. He's like, I'm going to work and do any opportunity that comes my way as long as I am alive and breathing.
I also think he's fascinated by these topics, which is why he likes to do this particular show. But anyway, for your information, since you asked about Ancient Aliens, it is a show on the History Channel that is bringing together a lot of different archaeologists, professors, scientists, people who really are researching this theory that a lot of our ancient ancestors and civilizations were visited by aliens, which were the reason that they had the technology and the information they had to build things like pyramids. And are you trying to mansplain this to me?
No, because I feel like that's one of the only real examples.
No, if you watch, they'll talk about the things that were built in Peru, the Mayan temples, Stonehenge is another example. And basically, the theory is two things. One, again, the technology didn't exist for these marvels to really be built. So how did they do it? But two, I think the most compelling thing, and then I'll stop because I've totally eaten away at my whole credibility, is that a lot of these landmarks or these technological wonders in different spots of the world share very common traits,
such
whether
as
it's like markings on the actual temples, the direction that they're faced when the sun and the moon come through, and how there's certain like windows that allow the moon to come through. Basically what they're saying is that they all share these traits. How were they able to communicate this information in a world previous to being able to even travel that far and communicate with other cultures?
I mean, don't you think that these older cultures relied on the sky much more than we do? We just talked about this in another episode. So they were probably more in tune with when the moon is going to be where and when it will come through what areas. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. But that was just one example. You know what? Why don't you try it before you diss it? Okay.
Before you
watch
an
episode. Yeah.
All right. Exactly. I will. So I just want to say that you subscribe to the theory that Stonehenge and the pyramids were all really built with the guidance of aliens?
No, not at all. I don't believe that 100%, but I do think it's fascinating to flirt with the possibility, because I just feel like we don't really know. I think the idea that we think we're the only intelligent beings in this massive universe is just ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed.
Bean, I want to start before we even get into other people's unsolved mysteries. Do you have anything that's ever happened in your life that feels like a phenomenon you can't explain?
Yes. My answer is yes, but I only have one very specific example, and it only involves you, of course, obviously.
Okay. Go.
You have done sessions with me, like coaching sessions with me privately. I don't even know the last time we did one. We used to do them a long time ago. And we would, there was one in particular where you did like a very deep meditation with me to start off. And I got very deep, very quick. I was like in my car. And as I'm in the meditation, this is not just to sell your special skills. It's just something that happened that I could never understand. We're sort of like visiting, I don't know what we're meditating on, but we're like going into deeper previous parts of my life, which I believe ended up being past lives. Again, you know, my verdict on all of that is still, I'm not sure where, but I'm in this meditation and this bird shows up and it says, it basically like, without speaking, I know that I'm supposed to follow it. And I say to you, it's like a hawk or an eagle, because that's what I see, which I have no I'm not that I don't know what the language I'm looking for. I'm not as wise into this world as you are. So I don't have any of the info that you have. So I'm like this.
You mean like spiritually literate in terms of like these concepts of what animals mean, and
I think my mouth just stopped working. I was like, anyway, so I'm following this bird and it like takes me to these other locations and you're sort of like telling me what everything means. And then I don't know if you tell me, I think you tell me after the fact that when we get off, it turns out that hawks are spiritually symbolic of spirit guides and people who will like guide you and keep you safe. And I had never heard this, but in this deep meditation, I'm sort of flying behind this bird, which I described to you as either a hawk or an eagle because I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
It was mind blowing. I have never looked at hawks the same. Every time I see a hawk now, I'm sort of like comforted.
Yes. A hawk is a spiritual symbol for guidance from spirit guides. And it's actually found in a lot of cultures. A lot of native cultures believed that the hawk is the symbol of divine guidance.
I can't tell you how creepy it still is, even saying it out loud. And I have craved getting back to that type of deep meditation. And I haven't been there. So maybe you owe me a session.
I thought when you said when you brought up that session, you were going to say the fact that I was describing seeing things to you that you were also seeing in your meditation.
Yes, that too is really flipping creepy.
Did that not freak you out?
The whole thing creeped me out. I have to say, It was when I was like, okay, like I always knew you were powerful since we've been friends, but that time I was like, what is happening? Get out of my head.
It was cool because you're such a cynic and you really are. Yes. We've talked about this a million times on this podcast. Sometimes I tell you the things that I do and you love me, so you're supportive, but there's definitely a part of you that's like, I don't know if I believe it. And it was really awesome to watch you experience it and be super speechless afterwards.
Yeah, it was a major shift for me. After that, I was like, okay, all right.
Okay, this is real.
All right, let's get on board. Let's see what's going on here.
Yep.
But now I need your story because I'm certain yours will be much more, I have no words today. Yours will be much gooder than mine.
Let's not forget the last episode I said annals of history, so there's really no way that you're going to top that.
Powerful. Yours will be more powerful than mine.
Good word.
Not gooder.
I have a lot to pick from. Actually, the one that I really want to tell, I'm going to save for next week because next week, spoiler alert, we're doing hauntings. So I will not tell that story today.
Wait, I hope tell me what you're going to tell me. I'm really hoping it's what I want to know about.
Okay. The one that comes to mind that is, again, a phenomenon I don't have rational data or language to explain is, have you heard about these places in the world that are energy vortexes?
Yeah, like near the Northern Lights. I know there's supposed to be one, right?
So the idea is that there are spots throughout the world, and we have a bunch of them here in the US that are energy vortexes. And I was just always very curious, like, what does that even mean, an energy vortex? What does it mean? And what I've learned about it is that they are supposed to create feelings in you that you wouldn't feel if you weren't there. They also can create clarity and connection to something greater.
I gotta go right now.
So we went to Sedona, TJ and I, right after we got married. And I know that there are a ton of energy vortexes in Sedona. And we were doing a hike And we were literally, I mean, the hikes in Sedona too, depending on the kinds you pick, they're not easy. You're kind of scaling up the rock. It's not like a path that's super easy to get to, but we were scaling up this rock. I'm kind of following TJ, and
That doesn't sound like a very relaxing honeymoon, by the way. Hiking up the steep rocks. Like, what kind of like, can we get by a pool and get some drinks in our hand?
I mean, you know, TJ, there's got to be a little mix of outdoor adventure in it all, and I just embrace it.
Okay.
So we're going up this rock, and we're at the point where you can either go left or right. And both of us are like, let's go to the left. We go to the left. And as we're getting closer, I'm getting dizzier and dizzier and dizzier. And then we get to this spot, and I literally have to sit down. And TJ, who never stops because he's just constantly moving and a hiker and grew up in the mountains, kind of just like also felt like he was losing his footing, and turned around, looked at me, and he's like, do you feel dizzy? And I'm like, yeah, that's why I just sat down. He's like, something's weird. Like, something feels like, it felt like we were in like a swirl. I don't know how else to explain it. It kind of felt like that, like where you lose your footing because your head is swirling a little bit. And it just felt like this magnetic pull. And then we both just sat there, and I was like, well, maybe we should just see if we meditate. Like, should we take this in? We had already known that there was these vortexes were supposed to be about connection. And so we both just sat there in silence. And I just have to tell you, I received so many clear messages about my purpose, about the move that we were going to do to California that we did right afterwards. Like, so much peace. I was filled with so much peace and clarity. And TJ too was like, that was the most peaceful I have ever felt. It was so weird.
Does TJ get into the same level of spirituality that you get into? Or was this like you? Oh, he does. Okay. But I thought this was even not typical for him.
No, he believes the things that I think we both believe the same things about connection to greater things, about, you know, things like spirit guides and being, you know, that there's more than the eye can see, that there's a lot more to it. And that we're on a journey to awakening to all of that. He doesn't practice it the way that I do. He certainly doesn't teach it the way that I do, but he's open to it.
Right.
He's definitely not someone who would just tell you he was feeling those things if it wasn't absolutely what he was feeling.
Okay.
It's crazy. I can't explain it.
Can I hear some messages? Is that kosher for the show, or it's private and personal?
No, it's what I said. It was like just clarity about how good the move was going to be for all of us, and clarity about what I'm meant to do in the world and this practice that I have, and owning the fact that I'm a healer and not trying so hard to make it make sense to people or make it sound practical, but just to heal people.
I want to go.
I told you when I was there, we need to go to Sedona.
Okay. Company retreat, podcast retreat in Sedona, 2024. I'll bring my minion overalls.
That's my phenomenon.
Wow. That is phenomenal. You know what I mean?
All right. So what are we going to do here? You have an unsolved mystery for me. I've got one for you. Who's going to go first?
I don't know. You want to do rock, paper, scissors?
Okay. Ready?
Okay. Is it best out of one?
Yeah.
Okay. I got it.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Oh,
what you got
paper,
there? Oh, I won.
Paper.
I got
Dang.
scissors. All right. I'm going to go.
You go.
I'm going to tell you about the curious case of Jacqueline and Joanna, who are twins that were killed in a car accident in 1957.
Ooh, yours is already creepy.
And were said to have reincarnated together in another lifetime. And there's some interesting twists and turns in this story, and it is considered an unsolved mystery to this day. All right, so are you ready?
Yep.
That sounds good to you?
Do my goggles look ready?
Your goggles look very ready. So in May of 1957, we are in Hexham, England, by the way. We'll transport you there. It's a small town. And that May, two little girls, 11-year-old Joanna Pollock and her younger sister, Jacqueline, who was 6 years old, they were on their way to church. They were walking with their friend Anthony, and they were struck, unfortunately, and killed by a car.
Pause. I thought they were twins.
Did I say twins?
I thought you said did I make that up? Because that was kind of what was eerie to me.
Let's start over again.
All right. Okay.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Don't capture everything before this. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about the curious case of the Pollock sisters. Just hang in there. This is going to be an interesting ride. All right. So I'm transporting you back in time to 1957 to a small town in England called Hexham. It's May, and two sisters, 11-year-old Joanna Pollock and her younger sister, 6-year-old Jacqueline, are on their way to church. They're walking to church with their friend Anthony, and they are sadly struck and killed by a car.
No parents? They're like just going to church on their own?
Yeah, they're walking to church.
All right.
They get hit by a car and instantly die on the scene. It was later, by the way, it was discovered that the driver was drunk and or under the influence of drugs. This is the really crazy part. She had intentionally hit the 3 kids after being separated from her own children. And they diagnosed her with a psychiatric break. But this made British headlines throughout the spring of 1957. So they die, and their parents, obviously, John and Florence Pollock, they are devastated. They're bereft, obviously, as you would expect. Fast forward a couple years, Florence, the mom, becomes pregnant again. And when she's pregnant, her husband says to her, "You're going to have twins, and they're going to be girls, and these are our 2 girls coming back to us in a new form." Now, the thing to just know about the Pollocks is that they're devout Catholics. So they don't believe in reincarnation, and they have argued over this premise repeatedly after John starts to say that this is what he believes. So much so that Florence becomes really angry with him, and this conversation becomes such a controversy that there was even a threat in there that Florence basically wanted to file for divorce because they were in such odds about this concept, and it was going against so much of what she believed.
Wow.
So the other fact is that John's telling her you're going to have twins. There's no history of twins in either of their bloodlines. Florence goes to a doctor. The doctor is like, no, you're going to have a single birth. The likelihood of twins is very low.
John had a knowing, right?
An intuitive knowing.
An intuitive knowing.
So against all odds, Florence goes into labor and gives birth to 2 twin girls on October 4th, 1958. The twins are named Jillian.
Bro, that's today. Do you know that? Was that coincidence? October 4th.
Whoa!
Are you joking, you little creepster?
Oh my God. I literally have goosebumps.
You're like smelling for garlic plants now. You're like, what?
That gave me goosebumps from like the top of my head to my toes.
Ooh.
Woo! Okay.
It's full body.
Gather ourselves.
No, all right. I'm gathered.
Wait, how many years ago was that? 2023 to 1958?
I can't even do words. Don't make me do math right now.
Come on, let's do it.
What's it? Say it again. 1958?
2023 to 1958. People are probably screaming at us right now like, duh, you idiot.
65.
65 years ago. On this day, we're telling the story.
Using
that
a calculator?
Is crazy.
I use my brain
Don't
calculator.
Tell people. So the twins are born and they're identical twins. But while they're identical, they had different birthmarks, which doctors were really confused by because it's very, very unusual for identical twins to have different birthmarks.
Right.
Jennifer had a small birthmark on her left hip, which matched a birthmark that Jacqueline had had. This is the sister who died in the car accident.
Super creepy.
Jennifer also had a birthmark on her forehead, which is similar to a small scar that Jacqueline had in the same exact spot.
No way.
Now, the twins turn about 3 months old, and the family moves away from Hexham, which is where the girls had died, and they relocate to a place called Whitley Bay. It's east of Hexham. The girls get older, and as they're getting a little older, we're now entering like toddlerhood and little beyond. They're using their words. They start to talk about Hexham, the town of Hexham, and describe it in great detail.
Creepy.
Like they're able to talk about the town and the storefront and where the park was and things like that.
Your story is way creepier than mine, by the way. Way creepier. I'm already creeped out. Yeah.
All right, 2 in a row. I'm really winning the creepy game.
Yeah.
So the family returns to Hexham when the girls are 4. And the twins start pointing out landmarks that they've never seen before because they moved out of Hexham, remember, when they're 3 months old. And they can name them. They know what the landmarks are. Like the school that Joanna and Jacqueline went to, they'll point to it really excitedly and be like, there's our school. The Hexham Abbey.
Super creepy.
Which is the church. And then a playground where their deceased sisters loved to play. They would be like, that's the playground that we play at.
Ooh.
They even seem to know how to get to the playground without ever having been like guided there before. So their parents are starting to be like, okay, what's going on? John is sort of like, told you. Florence is not still very convinced, and she's a little, annoyed that this argument she's been having with her husband about reincarnation is starting to work against her because they can't explain why these little girls know so much about Hexham and about the things that Joanna and Jacqueline used to like to do. Another thing
I was curious how the mother was able to explain it. I mean, I can't explain it.
At this point, it feels like she's just kind of going with it, but starting to feel a little bit confused about what's going on, whereas John is feeling like he understands what's happening. Another weird thing that the parents say happens is that the twins start to identify their late sister's toys by name. So like, oh, there's Roxy, the teddy. They had actually even stored the late girl's toys out of sight, and the twins started asking for these toys back by name. I'm missing the puppy Rover. And so
Did you just make that part up, or is that a real example?
I'm just adding a little bit of color commentary. The girls it was almost like they were remembering these toys as their own. That's how they were talking about them. Like, where is this dog of mine? They were able to name these toys, and then they also started to divide the toys up by who owned them previously. So Joanna and Jacqueline had different toys. The 2 girls are dividing them up exactly the same way that their deceased sisters had.
No way.
And they even are, aware or saying that these toys came from Santa, which ones came from Santa, which were exactly the ones that had come from Santa.
What is happening? What is going to be the outcome here? I'm so curious.
Oh, I'll get there. So Florence and John start to notice even more things, like there's a lot of similar personalities between these sisters and their other sisters.
Right.
Joanna, which was the older sister, remember, of the deceased, she was the 11-year-old when she died, was very protective of her younger sister, Jacqueline. And Jillian seemed to be the one in the new pair, in the twin pair, that was more mature than her twin sister. Jillian was only born 10 minutes before Jennifer, but she was the one who looked after her twin, almost in this sense of feeling protective as well. They also noticed that they enjoyed almost exactly the same foods as their deceased sisters and exactly the same games. They wanted to play exactly the same games. So Florence, keeps rejecting this idea that this could possibly be reincarnation. She says, until one day that changed her mind completely.
As if this wasn't enough.
She walks into their room and she finds them playing make-believe. And they're playing make-believe with, they're on the ground, they're playing make-believe, and Jillian is holding her sister's head. She's cradling her head. So Jillian's holding Jennifer's head. They're laying on the ground and telling her, oh my God, the blood's coming out of your eyes. This is where the car hit you. So they're basically recreating the car accident scene and describing details that actually happened during the car accident.
That's very eerie.
One other occasion that Florence says really changed her mind is that Jillian pointed to Jennifer's birthmark. Remember, she has a birthmark on her head, and we said that's where Jacqueline had a scar. Jillian points to her sister's birthmark and says, that's the mark Jennifer got when she fell on a bucket.
Is that
how it happened? Which is how she got the scar.
What does this all mean? And why did they go back to the same parents? It was like they had something to fulfill there.
Right. The dad also talks about how the girls were just always terrified of cars. Every time a car would even start, they would get anxious. and start screaming and saying the car is coming to get us. So this really irrational fear of a very everyday object that you see all the time would terrify them.
Wait, aren't these chicks alive?
They're alive. I'm going to tell you what they say today.
Let's get them on the podcast.
So here's the thing. Shortly after the twins turned 5, their memories start to fade. Ugh. Now, this is something I did look into past lives and people who are researching past lives. And a lot of researchers say that right around this age is when they stop talking about this. And I will even tell you, my own baby boy, Keon, when he was 3.5 or 4, we got this cat that he's still obsessed with. Hunter loves this cat. And we're sitting at breakfast one day and he's like, Mommy, Hunter in my past life was Joel. And Joel was my co-pilot in the war when they struck down our plane.
What?
He's 4. And
I've never heard this.
Okay. Yeah.
No way.
I mean, obviously I at that time and still am like, that could be anything, right? Like you're watching a cartoon, You're just imagining it. But I'm just going to say right before 5, my own kid was like talking about some past lives. He told me once, I'll never forget this actually. He told me at another occasion, Mommy, my mommy in my other life was in the orchestra. And kind of looked at me like sucks to be you. I don't know how to tell you.
You wish you were my last mom?
Yeah, like sorry that she was way more magnificent than you are, but I had to tell you.
Wow.
He would talk about his past lives before he turned 5. And so anyway, same with these girls around 5. They stopped talking about it. Jillian has been asked about this as an adult, and she says that here's what she can tell you. She experienced visions of herself playing in a sandpit at a home in Wickham, but Jillian had never been to Wickham. So she's able to perfectly describe the house and the garden that matched the home that Joanna had once lived in with her parents at 4 years old.
But that's not where the twins were born to and went home to?
No, this isn't Hexham. So I guess when Joanna was 4, they lived in this town, Wickham, that no one's ever been to. But Jillian is able to describe the house perfectly.
How? Does she say how?
She doesn't say how. That's kind of all that she'll say on the matter. And while the case of the Pollock twins has been cited as proof of reincarnation, you obviously have a lot of cynics who say that their memories could have been influenced by people around them. They did have 4 older brothers. So some cynics like to say, and skeptics, that the older brothers influenced them in some way, although the parents feel like it's way too uncanny. The level of detail, the scars, the fear, like that's not stuff that you can just recreate because your brothers have told you stories.
Wow.
And that is the unsolved mystery of the Pollock sisters.
Now, I really wish that I won rock, paper, scissors because mine is not that spooky at all. It's just pretty much an unsolved mystery. Like the end.
I want to hear it. Wait, but before we hear yours, I did get a little curious about reincarnation. Do you want me to do like the 3-minute thing overview of reincarnation that I learned when I looked into it?
1,000% yes.
Okay, let me just say before I launch into this, I do believe in reincarnation. It's very much a part of even the method that I teach around your soul coming back into the body to have tangible experiences so that it can grow and expand. So it is part of my own thinking. Anyway, that aside, they have found in a research study that 33% of Americans believe in reincarnation. And of those respondents, 10% actually say that they can recall their own past lives. So I thought that was interesting.
What percent?
10%. 10% of the 33% of Americans who say they do believe in it also say they can recall their own past lives.
I wonder to what extent.
Yeah. Well, so this was what I thought was really interesting. So for more than 45 years, there's been a team of the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia at UVA that's been collecting stories of people who can recall their past lives. To determine if this is something that we need to start to take seriously. The team over the 45 years has gathered 2,500 documented cases of children from all over the world that have detailed memories of their former lives that they have been able to then validate by going and researching or looking into the memories that these kids say they have.
Let's
and they
do
say
an app on that.
Yeah, I would love to. They say that they typically began talking about their previous lives when they were like 2 or 3 and stopped by the age of 6 or 7. And Dr. Tucker, who runs this research study, says that's around the same time that we all lose our memories of early childhood. He also says that he's meticulous about this methodology, and he checks for fraud, deliberate or unconscious, by always asking 2 questions before they even agree to further research anyone who's saying they have memories. One is, do the parents seem credible? Who knows how they look into that? And then 2, could the child have picked up the memories through TV, overheard conversations, or any other ordinary means? So if he can rule that out, meaning they have a memory that there's no TV show about. They have a memory about something so random in a village that happened to one family that, like, how would they have known that? Then he will look at it. Close to 3/4 of the cases investigated by the team are solved, meaning that a person from the past matching the child's memories is identified. Nearly 20% of the kids in the UVA cases have naturally occurring marks or impairments that match scars and injuries on the past person.
I wonder what the purpose, if that is correct, what the purpose of having physical scars from a previous physical body, what the purpose of that is.
Right. I agree.
Like, why?
I did wonder that too.
Fascinating.
I don't know. Maybe because part of their purpose is to get us to wake up to more realities than what is just tangible evidence in front of us. And so they come back to open our eyes to the concept of reincarnation. I don't know.
I totally think we should do an episode about it, because I still don't know where I stand. Although I will say, even during our deep meditation that I was just referring to, we did visit what you explained to me was a past life of mine. And it was very strange, the details I was able to pull. But, but I still can't say I know where I stand on all of that.
Totally. And we're also trained as society to look for tangible evidence. And that's part of the challenge, is if we can't see it, we can't trust it, which is just then it's a little sad, because there's so much that we can't see that we need to trust.
All right.
But anyway,
I'm doing it.
That's a different episode. On to your unsolved mystery. Take it away.
I'm really
my minion.
I'm feeling really embarrassed to do mine now.
Why?
I feel like we have this every time. Every time I'm like, oh, yours was so good. And mine is like scatterbrained and all over the place.
Well, you know what?
What?
Step up your game, young lady.
Maybe that's it. I'm not, I've told you this before. I'm not a good researcher. All right, listen, get ready. In fact, why don't we play a little guessing game? This case I'm about to share with you has been described as the most famous unsolved murder case in American history.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it John Benet Ramsey?
No, but that would have been a fun one too. Well, not fun, but you know what I mean.
Fun is the wrong word.
Wrong word. I'm just going to tell you so we stop. So I stop saying that other murders are fun.
Yes, please.
It's the Zodiac killer. Do you know about the Zodiac killer?
Sort of. Yeah. I know the term the Zodiac killer. I know that this isn't in too long ago history. It's more recent.
No, yes.
That's all I know.
Great. So I will tell you, you are correct. It was the late 1960s and early 70s in Northern California primarily.
Yikes.
So there were killings happening in all these different towns: Benicia, Vallejo, Lake Berryessa, and San Fran between 68 and 69 mostly. And his victims were couples that were like hanging out in some secluded areas doing only Lord knows what. A couple of the early people that he murdered were David Arthur Faraday, and he was with his date. It was the first time she was actually allowed out on a date. Her name was Betty Lou Jensen.
Aww.
I know. They were shot in their car on Lake Herman Road within the town of Benicia. Another famous case was Michael Renault Maggio. He was 19, and Darlene Ferrin, 22. They were shot in a parking lot of like a park in Vallejo. But the dude survived that attack, while the girl was pronounced dead when she arrived at the hospital.
Was he able to give the cops any clues?
A little bit. So it comes up later. No, not really spoiler alert, but he does come up later because he survived. Another couple, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, 20 and 22, they were stabbed in Napa County. Hartnell survived, but the girl died also a few days later. I know. And then there was this random cab driver, Paul Stein, who was shot and killed in San Francisco. Anyway,
wow.
The whole reason that those were some of the most popular murders that he did, although he has been connected to 37 potential murders.
Wow.
The big thing and the big creepiness with him is that he liked to sort of showboat. Like, he would leave all these weird things at the crime scenes. He would leave, hold on, just moving, like weird clues related to astrology, nautical equipment. But the weirdest thing is he would send these letters to newspapers, and they were letters, one, super creepy. It's like the makings of a movie. Dear editor, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman. And then he gave details about that murder that only the perpetrator could have known. But the even creepier and weirder part is he would send these ciphers with each letter, which were these like coded, it's like coded language. It's almost like you used to get them on the back of cereal boxes. Like, you have to
like
decode,
where you have to decode it.
Symbols. Yeah, each symbol represents a different letter, but there would be like these long, really confusing, challenging ones that he wanted the public and the cops to figure out that would come along with his letters. It's very much the making of a movie.
Did they have to use the cipher to be able to even read the letter?
They couldn't. No, there were like a regular part, and then the cipher supposedly gave up his identity. So nobody could figure them out. People tried like tirelessly to figure them out, and nobody could. And also each letter had his symbol, which was a circle with a cross through it, which became known as the Zodiac Killer symbol. So they had these ciphers, and he kept challenging everybody to get on board, but only one has actually been solved to this day. And it wasn't solved until 2020. Isn't that bananas?
The cipher was solved?
Only one of them. There were 4 known ciphers that he sent along with some letters. Yeah. And nobody could figure them out. It turned out that he did like misspell certain words intentionally to make it extra challenging to figure out. But still, you would almost think with like the internet and ChatGPT that we could kind of figure this out at this point. But still.
Wait a minute. Who solved this one in 2020?
There's like a lot of not fan bases, but people who were really obsessed with this case. I think I did write later who solved it. I'll get there. Give me a second.
It doesn't matter. Okay, I'll let you go. Sorry. Okay. I need to know.
So he writes that letter about the teens, and then he shoots, I mentioned he shot that taxi driver, Paul Stein, and he sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, and it was written in this erratic print, just like his other letters, and it gave all the details of the murder, and it was accompanied by a bloody scrap of the taxi driver's shirt. And then he was so like hot to have press around him that he said if they didn't publish all of his letters and everything he says, that he would next shoot out the tire of a school bus and quote unquote pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he's like super creepy, super dark, super meticulous with everything he's doing. Nobody can catch him.
Oh my God, this is terrifying.
I know,
I'm sure for the people who are living in these towns around that time.
Totally. And so there were a decent amount of survivors. And so they were able to give descriptions, but all the descriptions were different. So they think he was probably using costumes or like wigs and glasses and different things. But they did have a sketch that they used more frequently to try to pinpoint whoever this was. But in 1974, the letters stopped and no more killings occurred. They stayed open, but mostly there's been no leads. There have been 12 different Zodiac killer persons of interest so far. Still not solved. The most well-known was Arthur Lee Allen. He was the subject of a book and film called Zodiac, and he was a former elementary school teacher and convicted sex offender, and he died in 1992. He was actually, his photo was identified by that gentleman, Maggio, who I said earlier did survive the shooting. Yeah. So his photo posthumously, after he died, was picked out by that Maggio, saying that was him, but they still aren't sure. Another guy's name was Gary Francis Post. I had saw some rumblings of Ted Kaczynski being considered as the Yeah, as the Zodiac killer. There are a lot of rumors that there actually may have been more than one Zodiac killer, that it wasn't actually the same one. So they only received 4 ciphers, but he has been attributed to like 37 murders or something. Yeah, he took credit for 37 murders. That's what it was.
Wow.
But they could only conclusively link him to 5 killings and 2 additional suspected murders.
So it's like it could be copycat, where it's becoming such a big part of the press cycle that other psychotic people are trying to
So
copycat.
They don't know. Yeah, and because there were all these different descriptions of him, they just don't totally know. They've made movies, they've had books, there have been like, I'm telling you, there were like message boards I was really getting deep down into with people theorizing. So I saw one message board where they had an old photo of the young man, one of the first young men murdered, his funeral. It was like a photo. And then people were speculating that the killer was actually there. And one of the scouts in the picture looks just like the killer.
Oh my God, that's so creepy.
But they don't know. And he did creepy things like they would trace calls that he would make to these radio stations or television stations. They would trace the calls back to like a phone booth really close to the police station. He was just a super duper creepy guy.
Disturbed person.
Super disturbing. It's not paranormal. It's not weird. It's just super creepy that this guy was so hot to get his like name out there and playing these weird games. Doesn't it just seem like a horror movie you watched when you were 14? Like clues,
or it seems like
puzzles?
A plot from like a really dark Batman Joker situation.
Joker vibes. It gave me Joker vibes too. That's exactly what I thought. Totally creepy.
Are you not going to tell me what the cipher said that the guy decoded 3 years ago? Terrible cliffhanger.
Well, he actually sent different pieces of the cipher, and so one of them was decoded. And it said something to here, I have the actual quote of what it was decoded. I don't know one of the words. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all that I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife.
Oh my God.
Spooky.
Spooky. That is so disturbed. Holy shit.
And he sort of teased them, being like, I hope you're having lots of fun trying to catch me. I'm not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner because now I have enough slaves to work for me. It's like super duper creepy, cracked by like a group of people who worked tirelessly on this. And he did threaten to like more acts of violence if the papers didn't publish his message and his ciphers and everything.
So he's trying to create fame or infamy.
Totally.
Wow.
Super creepy. And it's not solved. That's the craziest case. Like, dude did so much and they couldn't get anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really disturbing.
Sorry.
Holy. I wonder how many movies this has inspired.
It says tons. There's tons because it
has
the making. Yeah, it has the perfect making of a book or a movie.
Oh my God. I feel like we need to say something like lighter before we sign off today.
What about me being dressed as a minion and having yellow paint all over my hands?
Here's the best part. The minion costume, the face of the minion is on the hood. Like it's like a sweatshirt hoodie. And so every time Bean would look down to read her notes, it was literally like the minion was the only thing in the screen talking to me. And that did cheer me up. So thank God you wore such a happy costume today.
I feel like this is less intimidating when sharing tales of the Zodiac killer.
Yeah, seriously. Wow. Well, that's Unsolved Mysteries then.
Unsolved. Bean. Yeah. We should take it to the 90s show and see what they can make of it.
I bet you there's an episode of this on the 90s show.
Ooh, let's watch it.
All right, we got one more episode left of spooky season next week.
Spooky.
We're going to talk about hauntings.
Spookily or like this, like an asshole.
We'll find out next week.
Ooh.
See you then. Bye, Bean.
See you then. Bye.